Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, Episode 540, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD, Part 4. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will continue with Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. This is a classic self-help book that deals with the power of positive thinking. Today's show will feature background footage from the Mountains to Sea Trail going to Lane Pinnacle. To get there from Asheville, North Carolina, take the Blue Ridge Parkway heading north. When you see the sign for Craggy Gardens, maybe a couple 100 feet, 100 yards past that, there'll be a little dirt pull-off on the left side of the road. Park there, and then head back south towards Asheville, walking along the parkway for maybe 100 or 200 feet. Then the trail goes off to the right, eventually making its way to Lane Pinnacle. So, now, let's continue with Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. You'll feel younger. You'll actually look younger. Many times I have seen a man or woman apparently grow 5 or 10 years younger in appearance after removing old emotional scars. Look around you. Who are the youthful looking people you know over the age of 40? The grumpy, the resentful, the pessimistic, the ones who are soured on the world, or the cheerful, optimistic, good-natured people. Carrying a grudge against someone or against life can bring on the old age stoop, just as much as carrying a heavy weight around on your shoulders would. People with emotional scars, grudges, and the like are living in the past, which is characteristic of old people. The youthful attitude and youthful spirit that erases wrinkles from the soul and the face also puts a sparkle in the eyes, looks to the future, and has a great expectation to look forward to. So why not give yourself a facelift? Your do-it-yourself kit consists of relaxation of negative tensions to prevent scars, therapeutic forgiveness to remove old scars, providing yourself with a tough but not a hard epidermis instead of a shell, creative living, a willingness to be a little vulnerable, and a nostalgia for the future instead of the past. Now, let's go to page 191 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Attempting to pour a liquid into the mouth of a very small-necked bottle often results in the same kind of behavior. You can hold your hand perfectly steady until you try to accomplish your purpose. Then, for some strange reason, you quiver and shake. In medical circles, we call this purpose tremor. It occurs, as above, in normal people when they try too hard or are too careful not to make an error in accomplishing some purpose. In certain pathological conditions, such as injury to certain areas of the brain, This purpose tremor can become very pronounced. A patient, for example, may be able to hold his hand steady as long as he is not trying to accomplish anything. But let him try to insert his door key into the lock on his front door, and his hand may zigzag back and forth as much as 6 to 10 inches. He may be able to hold a pen steady enough until he attempts to sign his name. Then his hand tremors uncontrollably. If he is ashamed of this and becomes even more careful not to make an error in the presence of strangers, he might not be able to sign his name at all. Now, let's go to page 198, continuing on to page 199. Yet self-expression may become morally wrong as far as your conscience is concerned. If you were squelched, shut up, shamed, humiliated, or perhaps punished as a child for speaking up, expressing your ideas, showing off, such a child learns that it is wrong to express himself, to hold himself out as having any worthwhile ideas, or perhaps to speak at all. If a child is punished for showing anger, or shamed too much for showing fear, or perhaps made fun of for showing love, he learns that expressing his real feelings is wrong. Some children learn that it is sinful or wrong only to express the bad emotions, anger and fear. But when you inhibit bad emotions, you also inhibit the expression of good emotions. And the yardstick for judging emotions is not goodness or badness as such, but appropriateness and inappropriateness. It is appropriate for the man who meets with the bear on the trail to experience fear. It is appropriate to experience anger if there is a legitimate need to destroy an obstacle by sheer force and destructiveness. Properly directed and controlled, anger is an important element of courage. If every time a child comes up with an opinion, he is squelched and put in his place, he learns that it is right for him to be a nobody and wrong to want to be a somebody. Such a distorted and unrealistic conscience does indeed make cowards of us all. We can become overly sensitive and become too carefully concerned with whether we have a right to succeed in even a worthwhile endeavor. We become too carefully concerned about whether or not I deserve this. Many people, inhibited by the wrong kind of conscience, hold back or take a back seat in any kind of endeavor, even in church activities. They secretly feel it would not be right for them to hold themselves out as a leader or presume to be somebody, or if they are overly concerned whether other people might think they were showing off. Now, let's go to page 213 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Each person needs a quiet room inside his own mind, a quiet center within him, like the deep of the ocean that is never disturbed, no matter how rough the waves may become on the surface. This quiet room within, which is built in imagination, works as a mental and emotional decompression chamber. It depressurizes you from tensions, worry, pressures, stresses, and strains, refreshes you, and enables you to return to your workday world better prepared to cope with it. It is my belief that each personality does already have a quiet center within, which is never disturbed and is unmoved, like the mathematical point in the very center of a wheel or axle that remains stationary. What we need to do is to find that quiet center within us and retreat into it periodically for rest, recuperation, and renewed vigor. Now, let's go to page 215 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Your soul and your nervous system need a room for rest, recuperation, and protection every bit as much as your physical body needs a physical house. And for the same reasons, your mental quiet room gives your nervous system a little vacation every day. For the moment, you mentally vacate your workday world of duties, responsibilities, decisions, pressures, and get away from it all by mentally retiring into your no pressure chamber. Now, let's go to page 220 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Still, another type of inappropriate response that causes worry, insecurity, and tension is a bad habit of trying to respond emotionally to something that doesn't exist except in our imagination. Not satisfied with over-responding to actual minor stimuli in the actual environment, many of us create straw men in our imagination and emotionally respond to our own mental pictures. In addition to those negatives that actually exist in the environment, we impose our own negatives. This or that may happen. What if such and such happens? When we worry, we form mental pictures, adverse mental pictures, of what may exist in the environment or of what might happen. We then respond to these negative pictures as if they are present reality. Remember, your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a real experience and one that is vividly imagined. Now, let's go to page 227 and continuing on to page 228 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. The difference between all these persons is not some inherent quality that one has and another hasn't. It is largely a matter of how they learned to react to crisis situations. A crisis is a situation that can either make you or break you. If you react properly to the situation, a crisis can give you strength, power, wisdom you do not ordinarily possess. If you react improperly, a crisis could rob you of the skill, control, and ability that you ordinarily have to call upon. Now, let's go to page 233. The word express literally means to push out, to exert, to show forth. The word inhibit means to choke off, restrict. Self-expression is a pushing out, a showing forth, of the powers, talents, and abilities of the self. It means turning on your own light and letting it shine. Self-expression is a yes response. Inhibition is a no response. It chokes off self-expression, turns off or dims your light. In shadow boxing, you practice self-expression with no inhibiting factors present. You learn the correct moves. You form a mental map that is retained in memory. You create a broad, general, flexible map. Then, when you face a crisis, when an actual menace or inhibiting factor is present, you have learned to act calmly and correctly. There is a carryover in your muscles, nerves, and brain from practice to the actual situation. Moreover, because your learning has been relaxed and pressure-free, you will be able to rise to the occasion, extemporize, improvise, act spontaneously. At the same time, your shadowboxing is building a mental image of yourself, acting correctly and successfully. The memory of this successful self-image also enables you to perform better. Now, let's go to page 236 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Hugh Casey, who was one of the most successful and the calmest relief pitchers of all time, was once asked what he thought of when he was sent into a game in the middle of a crisis situation. "I always think about what I am going to do and what I want to happen," he said, "instead of what the batter is going to do or what may happen to me." He said he concentrated on what he wanted to happen, felt that he could make it happen, and that it usually did. Now, let's go to page 255. Even in those areas where we have already developed a high degree of skill, it sometimes helps to drop back, lower our sights a bit, and practice with a feeling of ease. This is especially true when one reaches a sticking point in progress, where effort for additional progress is unavailing. Continually straining to go beyond the sticking point is likely to develop undesirable feeling habits of strain, difficulty, effort. Under such conditions, weightlifters reduce the amount of weight on the bar and practice easy lifting for a while. A boxer who shows signs of going stale is pitted against a number of easier opponents. Albert Tangora, for many years the world champion speed typist, used to practice typing slow at half normal speed whenever he reached a plateau where further increase in speed seemed impossible. A now prominent salesman uses the same principle to get himself out of a sales slump. He stops trying to make big sales, stops trying to sell rough customers, and concentrates on making small sales to customers he has come to know as pushovers. Now, let's go to page 264 and continuing on to page 265 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Another interesting finding is that the more a given engram is activated or replayed, the more potent it becomes. Eccles and Sherrington tell us that the permanence of engrams is derived from synaptic efficiency, the efficiency and ease of connections between the individual neurons that make up the chain. And further, that synaptic efficiency improves with use and diminishes with disuse. Here again, we have good scientific ground for forgetting and ignoring those unhappy experiences from the past and concentrating on the happy and pleasant. By so doing, we strengthen those engrams having to do with success and happiness, and weaken those having to do with failure and unhappiness. These concepts have developed not from wild speculation, a weird mumbo-jumbo about mentally constructed straw man, such as id, superego, and the like, but from sound scientific research into brain physiology. They are based on observable facts and phenomenon, not fanciful theories. They go a long way towards restoring the dignity of man as a responsible child of God, able to cope with his past and plan his future, as opposed to the image of a man as helpless victim of his past experiences. Now, let's go to page 270 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. The strong constitution exhibited by individuals who live long and live well seems linked to elements over which we have considerable control, not the least of which is a never-ending setting and resetting of goals, so that we have something meaningful to live for. Now, let's go to page 272 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. This élan vital, life force, or adaptation energy, call it what you will, manifests itself in many ways. The energy that heals a wound is the same energy that keeps all our other body's organs functioning. When this energy is at an optimum, all our organs function better. We feel good. Wounds heal faster. We are more resistant to disease. We recover from any sort of stress faster. We feel and act younger. And, in fact, biologically, we are younger. It is thus possible to correlate the various manifestations of this life force and to assume that whatever works to make more of this life force available to us, whatever opens to us a greater influx of life stuff, whatever helps us utilize it better, helps us all over. Now, let's go to page 277 We may do something very similar, but in reverse, when we unconsciously expect to get old at a certain age. At the 1951 International Gerontological Congress at St. Louis, Dr. Raphael Ginsburg of Cherokee, Iowa, stated that the traditional idea that a person is supposed to grow old and useless around 70 is responsible in large measures for persons growing old at that age, and that in a more enlightened future we might regard 70 as middle age. It is a matter of common observation that some people between the ages of 40 and 50 begin to both look and act old, while others continue to act and look young. A recent study found that the oldsters at 45 thought of themselves as middle-aged, past their prime, over the hill, while the youngsters at 45 still conceived of themselves as being this side of middle-aged. At least two ways suggest themselves as to how we think our at least two ways suggest themselves as to how we may think ourselves into old age. And expecting to grow old at a given age, we may unconsciously set up a negative goal image for our creative mechanism to accomplish. Or in expecting old age and fearing its onset, we may unwittingly do the very things necessary to bring it about. We begin to taper off on both physical and mental activity, cutting out practically all vigorous physical activity. We tend to lose some of the flexibility of our joints.
Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, CaseyWaters2 at CaseyWaters.com.